Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Felicia from SweetGeorgia, and this is the live office hours for the School of SweetGeorgia. So we come here once a month, every month, the last Thursday of every month, and we just talk about what's been happening inside the school. So if this is the first time that you've joined us, this live office hours basically helps support the School of SweetGeorgia here, where we study the fiber arts. We're talking about weaving, we're talking about spinning, dyeing, knitting, crochet, tapestry, all of those fun things. And so this time gives us a little bit of a moment to catch up on what's happening inside the school, what we've been creating for the school, and also what you have been creating from the things that you've learned. And so I'm really super excited to share a lot of these projects with you guys today. I don't know how hot it is where you guys are, but it is crazy hot here in Vancouver. There's a bit of a heat wave going on. Yeah, it's not super comfortable, but I think that a lot of the dyeing projects are going to reflect how hot it's been for many people. So I have a lot of dyeing photos to show you guys. There's been a lot of people who've been trying solar dyeing. That's been a really big thing recently. And yeah, just really excited. Nice to see everybody here in the chat as well. Thank you so much. It's nice that you're here. Wonderful. Okay, so the first thing that I want to share with you is that we just recently released a course. It's actually a re-release of a course, and let me share that with you here. It's a re-release of a course called Spinning with Supported Spindles. Now, this is something that we had worked on a while back with Debbie Held, and Debbie was teaching us how to spin with a supported spindle, which I feel like is one of the most amazing things ever. It's basically just a piece of wood. It's a stick, but knowing how to manipulate this and give it like a turn, a twist to it in order to create yarn is one of the most amazing things ever. And so I really encourage you guys, if you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to check out the new class that we filmed with Debbie Held about supported spindles. And I've seen a lot of things happening in the discussion forums with people using supported spindles and sharing supported spindles. So very excited about that. Now, I do want to show you guys some of the things that have been happening inside the community forums. This is from the unofficial Tour de Fleece thread that was going on inside the school. And I wanted to highlight this thread for you. I want you guys all to come and check out this particular thread. I think it has been amazing to follow. The whole point of Tour de Fleece is really about getting daily practice, about getting consistent, intentional practice, right? So spending the times, the starting date of the Tour de Fleece, and then spinning every single day, pretty much almost every single day until the end of Tour de Fleece, and then just using that as a motivation to sit down and spin every day. And so these are some of the hand spun yarns that have come out of those days of spinning for some of these members. So this is, I think, Sarah's last photo that she's posted about like all of the things that she spun during the period of Tour de Fleece. And these are from Helen. Helen took her spindles with her. She makes these gorgeous spindles. I don't have a photo of the other side of this particular spindle, but this one is like a checkerboard pattern that she's created with dark and light wood. She has a photo of the other side of the spindle as well. But she took her spindles with her on like a fishing and camping trip, I think it was. And like the fiber here is like super pretty. Everything about these is super pretty. And these ones were all spun by Ricarda. And so she's got some gorgeous skeins, beautiful skeins of yarn that she's all spun up here. And she has this purple supported spindle, which is also very intriguing. It's really lovely. But I think that watching the progress in this particular thread has been really inspiring. It's been really encouraging. I just love that everybody has been really intentional about spinning every day, even just a few minutes every day, just to sit down and spin a little bit and then see how much you can actually get done in just a couple of weeks. It's really lovely. So really excited about that thread. If you need some spinning inspiration, I encourage you guys to go check that out. But let me tell you about what else has been going on inside the school. And so this past month has been all about the acid dyeing study group. So we started this at the beginning of July, and so the idea was to basically get everybody up and running with acid dyeing. If you've never done any acid dyeing before, this is a time to start. Summer is a good time to do it. And so it was all about setting up your space and then learning how to do the immersion dyeing techniques. So dyeing all these different colors in dye pots, like in a dye bath with dyes floating around the yarn and making a solid color. And then after that, then it was about experimenting with different immersion techniques, like maybe using less water, making blotchier yarns, making more glazed yarns, all of those kinds of things. And so this is one of the things that I want to share with you guys, all the projects that people have been working on throughout this month. And tomorrow is going to be our last Zoom meetup where we're going to meet with myself and with Charlotte, and we're going to chat about the things that people have made and what they've learned and all those kinds of things. So it's never too late to participate and join and see what everybody's doing. So you are more than welcome to come in here and check out the Acid Dyeing Basics study group. And then the discussion is actually happening here in the forums as well. So that's what we have been doing in there. I wanted to, before we show all the projects that have happened this year, or this summer, or this month, I want to share with you guys the next study group that's coming up so that you can think about participating if you would like. But we are going to be focused on doing rigid heddle weaving in August. And so if you have a rigid heddle loom at home, if you haven't had a chance to start using it yet, or if you want sort of like more of a refresher, or you want to start making things with your rigid heddle loom that are not just strictly plain weave, this is a great time to start. So we are going to be doing this color and weave study group starting in August, and the idea is that you can start collecting all of your materials now. So get your loom out, get your yarns ready, all of those kinds of things to get started. And then starting August 4th is when we're going to start doing the color and weave GAMP. So that is the one where you're using basically two colors to create different effects. You're creating different color effects with just these two contrasting colors. And then after that, then you get to choose one of those patterns that you like the most and then extrapolate an entire design out of that. Similar to what we did with the Weaving Twills study group that we did back in January this past year. It's about making a GAMP, choosing one picture that you like, and then extrapolating that into something that's much larger, into a bigger design. Now, I'm showing you this photo here. This is Amanda Wood. She's the instructor for our rigid heddle weaving classes, and this is not the color and weave project. I'm actually showing you a photo of her weaving lace on a rigid heddle loom using pickup sticks. And the reason I'm showing this to you is because this is one of the next courses that is going to come out with Amanda Wood for rigid heddle. And so if you are interested in doing other things with your rigid heddle loom, like weaving textured fabrics that are not just plain weave, or moving into like weaving double width cloth on a rigid heddle loom, then you'll need to develop skills like being able to use a pickup stick and multiple heddles and things like that. Just things that just start to become a little bit more complicated when using this rigid heddle loom. But before you get to that point, I would really encourage you guys to start with the study group and work with her and try out the color and weave stuff, try out a couple of projects with a rigid heddle loom before the lace project comes out later on this year. So hoping that you guys can join us for that one. And also like interested in hearing if you guys have any questions about the rigid heddle stuff, if you have any particular techniques that you would like to learn with the rigid heddle loom. Amanda has developed a number of new patterns for just yarn. They're all rigid heddle weaving patterns. And we talked about that. We sat down and we talked about her projects, and I think that that's going to come out soon as well. But there's just so much that you can do with the rigid heddle loom. So I really encourage you, if you have never touched it, if you're curious about weaving, if you kind of don't know where to start, this is a great place to start. So I really, would love to see you guys doing that. So yes, that's exactly what Greta said. Going through the upcoming color and weave study group would help you get ready for the upcoming double weave content coming at the end of this year. Yes, fantastic. Okay, so what we usually do is I will run through a little bit of the community events that are happening inside the school. And so we have sort of updated our calendar a little bit. You can see it looks probably different from previous months, but you can see this is the Color and Weave study group, all in green. That's happening for these 3 weeks. And then we have 2 meetup sessions, the Rigid Heddle Zoom meetups, where you'll be able to sit in with Amanda Wood and ask her questions, show her your progress, talk about challenges that you've had or successes that you've had. So that is available for that. You can also see we have these knitting meetups on Mondays, and those are hosted by Robin. Oh, so that line is wrong. So those Monday knitting meetups are hosted by Robin. You can find that in the calendar in the school. And then Vicky, who's on the chat right now, Vicky, she hosts the spinning and weaving meetups on Saturdays. And so there is a new time for those Saturday meetups. And then you'll notice that we have a big thing going on Tuesdays. And so these are all the clues that are being released for the Autumn Dahlias MCAL, the mystery knit-along that's happening. And so that's not like an official School of Sweet Georgia event or anything like that. That's more like a Sweet Georgia knit-along. But if you happen to be in the school and you happen to be doing the MCAL, then we'll have some chat and conversation, all that kind of stuff happening inside the community forums. And those clues come out every Tuesday. There's also a cast on party that's going to be happening on Zoom on the Tuesday, August the 2nd. And so you can find out information about that. Greta's just posted a link to the calendar events. Thank you very much. Thank you. And just a reminder that all of these times, when you see them in the calendar, they will show in your particular time zone. So if it's like 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time for me, it'll show up for whatever time zone it is for you. So you don't have to do any of those conversions or anything like that in your head. Fantastic. So let's look at the projects. Okay, so like I said, it has been crazy hot. And these skeins have been dyed by a member, Susan, in Ontario. And she says, in southwestern Ontario, the forecast is sunny and 28 degrees. Tomorrow is 36 degrees. I think it's been about 29 degrees here in Vancouver. It's been uncomfortable here. But she says she's taking advantage of the heat and using it as a solar oven. And so she put some skeins of, I think it was cotton yarn that she's using here. And she's put the cotton yarn into some mason jars and added natural dyes. So the yarns would have had to been mordanted ahead of time. And then she's popped them in with the natural dyes, and you can just let them sit for as long as you like, really. Actually, these all of the natural dye courses are taught by Caitlin French here, or most of the natural dye classes are taught by Caitlin French. And I remember probably 12, 13 years ago, Caitlin gave me a jar, a mason jar that had logwood extract in it and a skein of yarn. And she said, oh, just keep this outside for a bit, and then you can open it up later, and then you'll have dyed yarn. And I never actually opened it. Now I'm kind of afraid if it's still okay to open. I don't know how long you can keep that for, but you don't need to keep it for 13 years. But yeah, these are looking fantastic, and all the color that you can get without actually cooking anything on the stove, without having to create a heat source or anything like that, just using what is naturally available, working outside in the summertime, being in the sunshine, it just is amazing. So it's very, very addictive, and it's a great way to use the hottest days of the year for solar dyeing. I have another amazing example to show you of this. So this is by Elena, and she's also used these pickle jars, mason jars, and she's using acid dyes. So acid dyes, very different from natural dyes. She's solar dyeing with 80/20 BFL and nylon. I believe she said this is superwash. I can't remember it. I probably have to, no, actually maybe it's not superwash, but I have to check the actual forum link. You can find the link to her thread right here. She's actually posted several photos. This is just 2 of several photos that she's posted. But you can see the interesting thing that she's done here. She's used the food dye. She's used Wilton's food dye, like for cake icing and things like that. And then she's put white vinegar in it. So it is an acid dye. So vinegar and the food dye. And what she did is she basically put the fiber into the jar without pre-soaking it in order so that the colors would strike in a more blotchy way. And then the other thing that she did is that she layered in the dye color. So she didn't make one dye color. She kind of like stuffed in some fiber, added one color, and then stuffed in some more fiber, and then added a different color. And so layering the different dye colors to create this sort of effect. So you can see some green down here, some blue, there's some pink in here, purple, and it's just all swirly. I think that the jars themselves are gorgeous. They could just sit there like that, and it's so pretty. But then, you know, after letting it sit, she says for 4 to 6 hours, you can take it out, and they are all dyed. And she's just having them hang out, letting them dry in the sun. It's really, really gorgeous. So then this is an easy thing that you could do with kids, right? You can just use a bunch of food coloring, some vinegar. You could do this with Kool-Aid dye. This is definitely something that you can do in the summertime. It's very family friendly. Yeah. Starthine is saying Wiltons break in interesting ways. Yeah, because those colors are combinations of other dye colors that have been put together. And so they might all behave a little bit differently at different temperatures and things like that. One of our spinning instructors, Katrina Stewart, has recently been playing with ice dyeing. And so that's another idea as well, you know, taking these dyes that have been blended together to make other colors and then using them in ice dyeing. When the ice melts, there's going to be all sorts of different temperatures, and then the dyes break into weird colors as well. So that's a whole other rabbit hole that we could go down to. But fantastic. Yeah, so that is some of the solar dyeing that's been happening. Now, I do want to share with you guys. This is Vickys Work. So Vicky's in the chat here. She is one of the moderators for the school. This is amazing. Okay, so there's actually 2 links here because this is the link to her thread where she talked about actually dyeing all of the wool and then spinning all of the yarn from the dyed wool. So this is her hand-dyed fiber that was hand-spun into yarn, which she then made into a tapestry using the tapestry study group that we did a couple months ago. And it is phenomenal. I have to share this with you guys and have to point this to you. She has in this thread with the Vickys Tapestry Study Group notes, she has many, many photos of her work in progress. She talked about how she kind of had to like weave it and then rip back 5 times in order to get the angles exactly the way that she wanted them for these mountain peaks. They are just so well done. And I love that the fiber that she dyed for this, again, came from a lot of the dyeing courses where we were creating triangles. So dyeing color wheels, dyeing triangles, all of that kind of stuff, all of that experimentation, all of the fiber that was created from that experiment continued to become like work and another exercise. Like she took all that fiber and then made it into a spinning exercise and creating marled yarns and things like that. And then from taking the marled yarns, making it into a fingering weight yarn, which could then be used for this effect. And it's just some beautiful things happening here. And I think that she's still blending the colors, right? Still blending. It's not like the yarns are gradient yarns. They were solid marled yarns. And so she's still having to do that gradient fade effect throughout the tapestry. In her thread, she shows how she finished the edges of the tapestry as well, and as well how she mounted it. So that is all wonderful. This is one of the tapestries that she made. She also made a second one, which has a circle in it as well. And yeah, it's fantastic. It's absolutely great. So I just wanted to share that with all of you guys. The Vicky's Instagram is down here, so you can check that out as well. And she shows a lot of progress as well. So congratulations on that. It's amazing. It's amazing. The next thing I wanted to share is very much like a similar idea. So in Vicky's case with her yarns that she created, she dyed all of the fiber in different colors, I believe. Yeah. And then this one is from Heather. So Heather is doing something different where she's only taking red, yellow, and blue, and then she has created, or like she's created her own color wheel by mixing just those 3 primaries of fiber and then mixing them in different proportions so that they become the rainbow of the color wheel. So you can see here, this is 100% red, this is 100% yellow, this is 100% blue. So then this one here, this one would be 50% red, 50% yellow. This one would be 75% red, 25% yellow, and so on. And so when you go through and then you card and blend all of these together, this is the color wheel that gets produced. It's phenomenal. It's amazing, right? Like, I feel like this could just blow your mind how this all works. It's very cool. So again, Katrina Stewart, she teaches the class Carding for Color, and it goes through a similar idea as this. Really, really lovely. Heather says that she used a blending board for this to blend the colors together, and then she used a diz to pull the fiber off the board, and then she did all of that twice in order to get the colors to blend more evenly. So I've done this kind of exercise before, and I used a drum carder, but you know, like using a blending board is much more flexible. We have really discovered, you know, working with Diana Twist, working with Kim McKenna this past year, just watching everybody use a blending board. Debbie Held has a class on blending board. Using this blending board that is very much less expensive than a drum carder. And you can just do so much with it. You can blend colors, you can create textured yarns with it, you can diz off of it, you can roll lags off of it. It's kind of mind-blowing. So yeah, Vicky says, I just need more time. We all just need more time. So this is spinning the rainbow, taking those 3 colors, carding them together to make a rainbow, and then she spun them all into yarn. And so this is her hand spun samples using all of those colors. Again, you can see they start with the red, yellow, and blue, and then these are all of the intermediate colors that were created from those carded little mini bats. Really lovely. So congratulations on that. That is really wonderful. You can follow Heather's work as well on Instagram, One Stitch by Heather, and she's doing tons of beautiful things as well. So you can check that out. The next one I wanted to show you, now we're going to get into the dyeing study group stuff. There's a lot. So this one I wanted to share with you guys. I know that Juliet, I think I've seen you in the chat. I think Juliet's here in the chat today. But the very first week of the dyeing study group is all about getting set. It's about getting your space ready and prepared, making space, making sure that you have a safe space to dye in. And so I just wanted to share with you, this is where Juliet was dyeing. Because she already has a glass studio. She does a number of other crafts as well. So she has an existing glass studio. And this is what she was using in order to cook her dye work. And yeah, I'll show you her dye work in a minute. But you can see that she is dyeing fiber. Then she's spinning it into yarn, into sock yarn, that she is then she's planning to crank on her 1917 Gearhart circular sock knitting machine. So obviously I'm very excited about seeing how this all comes together. And she's also weaving as well. So a lot of this fiber becomes hand spun that will eventually also come into weaving projects as well. So very excited about this. I would love to see more and more about what people's dye spaces look like, where everybody's working. I know that I had to convert part of my garage into a dye space so I could dye at home. It's not the prettiest space, but it's very, very functional. And I'm always curious about how other people are doing it. Now, I'll share with you, this is the fiber that Juliet actually dyed. So, similar idea. She did dye the big triangle of colors using 3 primaries, red, blue, and yellow. And then these are some of the intermediate colors that were created on the fiber. So these are all 25-gram bumps of merino. We had a good conversation about this actually in the Zoom meeting. We did an in-progress Zoom meeting, for the dye study group. So Charlotte and myself and everybody who's in the dye study group, we got online and chatting about some of the challenges that people have been having in starting dyeing. And Juliet had been talking about the blotchiness that happens with this particular sort of arrangement of acid dyes and merino fiber, non-superwash merino fiber, and then the way that she was dyeing them. But, you know, if you follow this thread and you follow Juliet's work, you can see that she's actually taken these bumps of fiber and she started to spin them. And all of the blotchiness comes out when you spin it, actually. When you turn it into handspun yarn, the handspun yarn is not blotchy. But I actually really love this effect. I love that there's light and dark in all of these fibers, because when you start to spin it together, all of those lights and darks, they create the depth that's going to be in that yarn. It's not just going to be a flat color, but it has this light, and it has a cool life to it. So I'm really, really pleased to see this. I hope you like it too, Juliet. It's lovely. Wanted to have this conversation as well. So this is by Sarah J, and she created two color wheels using cool primaries. On the right hand side, you can see, because this is a magenta color. And then she used warm primaries on this side. So you can see, I think this is the red color. So red is a warm red. This is a cool red. And in all of these examples, you can see how everyone is learning that the blue dyes are really, really, really strong. This is the blue dye. And just adding a little bit of blue has created this incredible green. So the difference between this yellow and this green is huge. Like if you were to use 1/10 of how much dye there was for this, you would get much lighter, like a lime color. But there's so many shades of green that exist between this emerald green and this yellow. And it's the same, like here. There's so many shades that exist between this purple and this magenta, right? Like there's so much that can happen here by just using the tiniest, tiniest, tiniest bit of blue dye. You can see the same thing in Juliet's example as well here, right? Like this is the yellow and this is the blue. And between this green and this yellow, there's a lot of room to create more colors, more shades of green. And all you need to do is cut how much blue you use in those formulas. And it's the same, even on the red side. The red is much stronger than the yellow. So you can see you could just use a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of red to create more shades of orange in between these two. So really it's about, like, yellow is just not as strong as the other dyes. But if you were to increase the strength of your yellow and use more yellow, then you might get into a situation where the yellow doesn't necessarily exhaust, because then you're using too much dye. So it's almost like you have to keep the yellow where it's at, and then you have to pull back on all of the other colors in order to create like more variation. But yeah, like when you work with them straight out of the dye stock solution and you work with them at equal percentages, then this can be really challenging. So this is where a lot of tweaking and all this kind of stuff has to happen. But Sarah's saying that next project, she's going to choose a color, do a range of depth of shades, and then a full color triangle, and then to see how it will look when you glaze these yarns with different colors. So she says, I'm going to continue. I'm quite certain that I will be continuing to experiment with this long after this study group concludes. And then she can take all of these skills and then transfer them to fiber reactive dyeing on cotton, on bamboo, on tencel. All of these same principles apply no matter what kind of dyes you're using. The color principles apply. Then it just becomes familiarity with using those different dyes and their characteristics and how they want to be treated and handled. So you can follow Sarah's dye notes here as well. It's fantastic. This one is by Lisa. So Lisa also dyed her color wheel with a turquoise, sun yellow, and fire red on, this should be 75-25 merino nylon fingering. And then she also used that information to dye this sock blank. It's very, very fun. I think it's a double sock blank. It looks like a double sock blank. Could be a double sock blank. It's fantastic. But she says that she's missing a sample. She says she already lost her yellow-orange sample, but she used a couple of extra mini skeins as dye mops to like mop up the extra dye that was around, and she really, really liked those. She said that those were happy accidents. And now she wants to try getting a set of warmer primaries so that she can experiment a little bit with that, because those moody colors that are mated with kind of like the desaturated, muted down shades are also really, really fun to do. It's a lot of things that can be done. Yeah, we just all need more hours in the day. These next two slides I want to share with you guys are awesome because I'm always just really enamored by people's documentation methods. I know I was having a conversation with Vicky about this yesterday. I know I've had conversations with Rachel and with Amanda Wood and Amanda Buckley all about documentation and how people keep track of all this information. And so I wanted to share with you a couple of members in the school who have been doing a great job of documenting their work. And so this is Amy, who has been dyeing her depth of shade samples. And you can see that there is a skein of wool in here, and then there's a skein of silk in here as well. So you can see on the left of each of these little samples, this is the bombyx silk, and then this is the wool. And what she's been doing is she's been wrapping them around embroidery floss spools and then putting them in coin holders, which it never occurred to me that you could get these things. But I guess this is for people who collect coins, and you can get a plastic sleeve that are sized for coins. So this is a fantastic idea. And so she's used little sticky labels as well to indicate what they are. So this is 0.25% depth of shade, 1%, 2%, 4% depth of shade for all of these different dyes. So it's fantastic. So that is Amy. You can follow her dye progress as well. And then this one as well. So this is Regan is also dyeing. She is working with Jacquard acid dyes, citric acid. She's using very similar to what I showed you from Juliet Studio. This is a buffet warmer. And in here you can see the metal stainless steel steam trays, or these heating pads. The stainless steel trays, and then they're sitting sort of in about an inch of water or so, and the beakers, the glass beakers, are holding all of the different variations of dye, and eventually as you heat this up, all of the water in each of these beakers is going to clear up and exhaust, and then you'll just end up with all of these fantastic strings of beautifully dyed yarn. And so you can follow Regan's thread as well. She has many, many photos of what she's been working on. And there's one where she has all of her dyed strings, like they're all individual strings, and they're all hanging to dry, and there's just like a beautiful rainbow of colors of just individual strings. But again, she's using these same embroidery floss spools, and again, using these coin holders. So I didn't realize that this was totally a thing, but this is really lovely. To see that two people have independently come to the same idea, I think is neat. It's fantastic. So congratulations everybody on making beautiful, beautiful records. Now Regan is doing this so that she has a library of color samples so that she can dye yarns for tapestry weaving, which I think is genius. Now this one is by Jessica. So I wanted to share this with you because these are kind of moving into the low water immersion dyeing experiments that people have been working on. So that's where you're not dyeing a skein in a big pot of water. You're not trying to produce a solid shade. You're really bringing down, reducing the amount of water that's in the tray so that the dye doesn't have a lot of room to move. It gives a much more blotchy, splotchy, multicolored appearance. It's not like hand painted because you don't have exact sections being painted with color, but this can create like a much more sort of modeled appearance to the yarn. And so Jessica has been, I think she's been saving this particular palette from a website that's called Design Seeds. I don't know if this website is still around. I think it might be. But they used to present all these color palettes that you could use for inspiration. I remember, you could go there for website design inspiration, you could go there for wedding color inspiration, all of that kind of stuff. And so she's been holding onto this palette, and she has created a skein of yarn inspired by the palette. I think it turned out perfectly. I think it turned out beautifully. it's a wonderful representation of all of the colors that are in here, and such a great job. So you can follow Jessica's dye notes there. She's dyed a couple of different skeins and a couple of different projects, but I thought that that one turned out especially well. I wanted to share that with you guys. This one is dyed by Sarah. And so she is doing, one is a skein. She was using turquoise, raspberry, and a gray color, a gray dye color. And again, using that low water immersion dye to create this sort of color here. And then she also did the same with the Corriedale fiber. So this is Corriedale wool spinning fiber. And she said that the fiber actually came braided up like that. And so rather than unbraiding it and then dyeing it and then rebraiding it afterwards, she dyed it just like that. She dyed it in the braid format so that when you sort of undo the braid, there's going to be areas of resist. And so you can see like here is a big pink and this is blue, but inside here, when you undo this, inside there is going to be white. And so it's going to lend to more sort of contrast of value, really, like some lights and some darks and a lot of things happening. So she said all of this fiber is going to be spun. It's going to become hand spun that will eventually go into her night shift shawl. So really, really, really lovely. Corriedale is so much fun to spin. It's so relaxing and fun to spin. I think we should all spin more Corriedale. So you can just go ahead and follow Sarah's study group projects there for her notes on what she's creating with all of this. Yeah, what a great comparison by Sarah. It would be interesting to see the difference once the fiber is spun. Yeah, I would love to see how that all turns out. I think it will come out beautifully heathered and a beautiful blue color. Now, the next thing I wanted to share you. This is the last project to share with you guys. And this is interesting. So this is dyeing with silk hankies. So silk can be delivered in a number of different formats. A silk hanky is basically silk that's been like stretched over like a frame and made into like sheets. And so there's like sheets and sheets and layers of silk fiber that have been laid one on top of another. And then it looks kind of like, well, it looks like a napkin. It's a hanky, like a handkerchief. And so it feels like this white silk fabric, but it's made from layers and layers and layers of silk fiber. And so silk being protein fiber, you can dye this with acid dyes just the same as you would dye wool. It just needs to be soaked for a long, long time in order to be able to accept all of the dye. So here, Joan says that she has soaked her hanky overnight with vinegar in order to bind the acid. And then she's also soaked it with some Dawn dish soap. And the dish soap, helps to reduce the surface tension of, it just reduces the surface tension of the water and allows for the dyes to penetrate more easily. You will sometimes see dyers use Dawn dish soap in their dye stock solution, or they might put it in their soaking water, whatever, all those kinds of things to basically help move the dye into the fiber a little bit easier. Sometimes if silk kind of repels a lot of water, that's why it needs to be soaked for so long. It repels a lot of stuff. And so if you don't do these things to kind of encourage the dye to go in, then you'll get white undyed spots in your silk afterwards. So she tried to work only with primary colors. So you can see some yellow here, you can see the red here, you can see some blue here. But of course, because they've sort of melded together and mixed together, there's intermediate colors that are being formed through here. So there's some green here. She added a bit of brown over top in order to add a little bit of depth. And then these were steam set and then dried. And then when you use a hanky, you basically are trying to pull each layer of silk fiber off of the handkerchief and separate the layers, and then take each layer and then you can attenuate each layer into some kind of a roving or some kind of a much fluffier mass that you can spin from. Otherwise, yeah, there's quite a lot of pulling and separating that has to happen. But in any case, so she's prepped one part of the fiber of the hanky in order to start spinning. And so if you follow her thread here, she does show the actual spinning of it and what it looks like as yarn, how textured the yarn can be when it comes from the silk hanky. And there's a lot of things that you could do with this. You could take the silk, spin it into one ply that you could use to wrap another kind of yarn. Maybe you wrap it around a wool yarn. Maybe you use this as weft yarn. There's a lot of wonderful things that you could do with silk that's spun from a hanky like this. And this is something that we would probably need to make a workshop about in the future to kind of go more in depth into working with silk hankies and things like that. Yeah, you can let me know if you think that's a interesting topic. Actually, that's going to be good. That's going to be a thing that we're going to talk about next. So in here, we're going to do the spinning fiber giveaway this month. So what we do every month is we have a survey. You can go to the survey link. It should be open. And it just asks you like 2 questions, 3 questions about the live office hours, what was helpful, what you will actually put into practice. And we're also looking for ideas, thoughts and ideas on what kind of course content you would like to see us make in the future. I know we have like a lot of content planned out for 2023 already, but we're still constantly always looking for new ideas as well. Very interested to hear what you're interested in learning about. And I ask this question over and over again, quite often, because as we evolve the school and as we add content to the school, we are adding the things that people have requested. So as we add things, then the landscape changes and what you guys are interested in changes. And so we're constantly looking at what other kinds of things would you be interested in learning about. So you can go to that link there, and then the winner will get to choose a braid of spinning fiber, whatever spinning fiber you like. Actually, you could even choose undyed if that's your preference. If you want to take a braid of undyed Cordale and then dye that yourself, that's totally an option too. Or you can choose from one of the colorways that we have already dyed. Spinning with plant fibers is coming up. It's going to be a thing. We're definitely going to do that. Yeah, you can pop in the chat too and let me know what kinds of ideas you guys have. I know like we have a lot of things that we would like to try. So always open to lots of ideas. Yeah, Vicky's saying this has been such a colorful month. It has been such a colorful month. It's been really very inspiring to see everybody's posts in the community forums. I am constantly amazed at how many beautiful things are happening in the forums, how much learning is happening, how much sharing is happening. It's been really quite inspiring, actually. Seeing everybody's learning plans and seeing people make progress on their learning plans, that has been also very positive. One of the things that we were thinking about making for future content, we're talking about making a class on documentation, you know, being inspired. Like I've been inspired by many of the members who are doing a great job of creating these sample libraries, you know, those dyeing libraries with the coin holders. That's very inspiring to see. I've been talking to a number of people on different ways that they document and keep track of their notes, their projects, what kind of details they record, how long they keep them for. All of that stuff I find really interesting, but I don't have a background in archiving anything. I'm terrible at archiving things, but I'm trying to create systems for all of these kinds of things. And so I'm always really interested to hear what other people are doing to create systems for managing their notes, for managing all of their physical samples, their digital samples, all of those kinds of things. The giveaway is open until tonight, July 28th. Sorry, the date on that is wrong. Sorry, Deborah. You're right. Yeah, so always thinking about documentation. So maybe we will prepare some information about that. Yeah. Breed-specific spinning. Jennifer, so we have done breed-specific spinning with the spinning sheep breeds, and that's the course that Rachel Smith taught, and it's all about wool, different sheep breeds. Hopefully that answers your question. Fantastic. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, fantastic. So I'm very, very curious and very interested to hear what you guys have to suggest, and I'm always looking forward to making more things with you guys. This fall is going to be really fun. I know that we recently filmed some stuff with Katrina and her husband Eric, and it's all about spinning wheel maintenance. And that's going to come out in the beginning of October. We have a class that we're going to be filming with Laura Fry on sectional beaming, so beaming your warp for your loom with a sectional beam. She's also coming to teach about lace, so Bronson lace, Huck lace. We're going to talk about lace structures and weaving. That's going to be a thing. Fantastic. Yeah, I think documentation has been coming up quite a bit. Good. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. So this is my very last slide, and it's just our contact information. If you need to find us, you guys can find us at our websites, SweetGeorgiaYarns.com, schoolofsweetgeorgia.com. You can find us on the Instagram. If you guys are making things, please do tag us at School of Sweet Georgia on Instagram, and we would love to see what you guys are making. It gives me a chance to sort of share your work with everyone else as well. And yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Wonderful. Thanks everybody for coming, and I will see you guys next month at the end of August. All right. Bye everyone.